statistical, mathematical fact
never has been down.
has broken every single record. There is no asset that has come close.
It's the only thing in the industry that was not touched, that was not hacked, and it never fails doing what it promised in 2009. It's never
What's
failed.
the best performing asset the world has ever seen? And you'll find out that it's Bitcoin.
Welcome, Bitcoiners. Welcome, Bitcoiners. Welcome, traders. There are traders here too. Welcome, followers. Welcome, supporters. Welcome, haters. Welcome, haters of Bitcoin. Welcome, haters of Oliver Velez. You're welcome too. I welcome you all. Welcome to another live space with Oliver Velez. Of course, my name is Oliver Velez, and you know what I'm trying to do here? I'm trying to be your Bitcoiner for life. Well, maybe not for life, but you know what I mean. I'm trying to be that voice in the wilderness that if you have already adopted Bitcoin, I want to be that voice in the wilderness that keeps you on point, that prevents you from being caught up in the noise. And if you have not yet been able to capture, cut through, or clarify for yourself the value proposition of Bitcoin and what it's come to do for humanity, I want to be that voice of reason that nudges you to the epiphany that I had some 3+ years ago. I will tell you right off the bat that I was not always a fan of Bitcoin. In fact, as embarrassed as I am today to admit it, I actually fired people in my organization that talked about Bitcoin too much. Yes, I was one of them. I felt that it was a distraction. I felt that the market was too young for us to focus on. I felt that I did not want the people, and especially the integral people in my organization, pulled away from our thing. And our thing was extraordinarily successful, very, very big. And so I too was a naysayer. I can't go as far as saying that Oliver Velez was a hater of Bitcoin. I was not. I just chose to not focus on it because what we were doing, what I was doing, was so nice that I wanted absolutely no distractions or disruptions whatsoever. So I'm somewhat embarrassed today to say that I did that. But I'm trying to make amends by doing what I consider to be and what others consider to be actually as God's work here. I spend a decent amount of time. I spend a big portion of my life today spreading the gospel of Bitcoin. Wherever I go, I travel decent parts of the world every single year with the sole purpose now of spreading the gospel of financial freedom, and a big component of my message is Bitcoin today. I will be in 19 different cities this year doing exactly that. I am making amends. I am correcting the error of my ways. And if you are one of the individuals who have not yet been able to wrap your hands around this life-changing asset, this once in a millennia opportunity, I want to try to be that voice for you that nudges you in that direction. All right, guys, today I wanted to speak to you about something that I consider to be very important. It is my view, my belief, that Bitcoin in the future will never be sold. Now, I know that never is a very big word. It's a very strong word. My mother used to say, Oliver, because I used to throw the word around quite frequently. Oliver, Never say never, son, because you never know. And I'd always joke, well, Mom, you just said never. And she would say, stop sassing me, boy. You know what I'm saying. Never say never, Oliver. Never's a long time. But Mom, I'm going to have to break that rule. Yes, my mom is still alive. Mom, I apologize, but I'm saying never. I believe that there is a day in the future where Bitcoin will be at least extraordinarily rarely sold or its ownership transferred. And whenever I talk about this, no matter where I am in the world talking about this actual topic, the vast majority of people just can't see it. The vast majority of people do take issue with this belief of mine, this vision of mine, for lack of a better phrase. And what I want to try to do here is I want to try to explain why I believe this is the case. And I want to press you to, I guess, take me to task on it. I want you to do that. I want you to try to, if you don't buy into what I'm about to explain to you, I want you to push back on this. I want you to try to punch holes in it. I want you to try to prove what I'm about to explain to you wrong. Do it for me, because I've tried to do it for myself and I can't find holes in my argument, in my view, in my vision. So I leave that up to you. So once again, what's the topic of my talk today? What did I say? What did I say today? Very quickly, let me just see. I want to get the words right for you. I do strongly encourage that you grab something to take notes with. Of course, if you don't want to take notes while we're here together live, then you certainly can do so by re-listening to the the live spaces here on Twitter. I do want to make sure that everyone understands that each and every live space here does wind up on my Bitcoin podcast called Bitcoin Unleashed. Please, I strongly encourage that if you find anything of interest I have to say here today, that you go out and you find Bitcoin Unleashed on Spotify, on YouTube, on all the on Fountain app in particular, where you can earn free sats just to listen. That's crazy. I strongly encourage that you do that if you find anything I have to say today of interest, where you can actually go through all of my themes, all of my narratives, all of my beliefs, and get sort of wrap your hand around at least my vision as it relates to this incredible asset called Bitcoin. Now, I named today's talk specifically why Bitcoiners, that's you, hopefully, and the ETFs as well. I wanted to throw that in there. Why Bitcoiners and the ETFs won't sell BTC in the future. Now, let's begin. Take notes, guys, if you can, or at least take notes if you plan on listening to this talk again. I want to first start off by asking all of you a question. What are the most owned assets on Earth today? What are they? Have you thought about that? Have you considered that? Have you considered what assets are more owned than all the other assets that exist in the world today on our planet? I don't know what assets are owned on other planets. I'm always joking about this. I have yet to do intergalactic travel, but here on our green Earth, on our planet, have you ever sat back to think about this? What assets are the most owned assets on Earth? Well, I'm going to help you out here. Apple is the most owned asset on Earth. It is followed, or what battles Apple back and forth for being the most owned financial asset on planet Earth, is Microsoft. So Apple and Microsoft go head to head all the time. These two things battle for being the most owned asset on planet Earth today. Apple and Microsoft. You have Amazon in that list. You have Google in that list. These four things together are gargantuan in terms of ownership by the world, by the financial world in particular. Now, I want to follow up that question with a second question. Why? Why is Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, why are these amongst the most owned things on planet Earth? By the wealthy, by governments, by the wealthy, by the elite, by the entire financial world. Why is it? Well, it's because they're the most valuable assets on Earth outside of gold. I want you to understand what I'm tying together here. The most owned assets are the most owned assets because they are the most valuable assets. Now, I know we can get into an argument of, chicken and egg, which one comes first? Is it the most valuable because they became the most owned? Is it the most owned now because they became the most valuable? I don't really want to go there, but it is undeniable that they are inextricably intertwined. The most valuable assets on Earth are also the most owned assets on Earth. And this is going to become extraordinarily important in our talk for a variety of reasons, which we'll get to. You see, the point is, people, that you cannot own, you cannot not. I know that's a double negative. I was a major in English in college. I know that's a double negative, but it's appropriate here, right? You cannot not own the most valuable assets in the world. Impossible. You cannot not have a healthy allocation to them. No fund, no index, no money management organization, no insurance company, no pension fund. Do you understand? No 401k organization can actually exist today for any length of period of time if they do not have a very healthy allocation to the top assets. They have to have Apple. They have to have a portion of their assets allocated to Microsoft. They have to have some version or some percentage of the Amazons of the world, and the Googles of the world. This is not a choice. Do you understand? These people will never get fired for owning Apple. They will never get fired for owning Microsoft. Do you understand? They cannot not have some allocation to the richest, um, the the most valuable assets on earth. It just can't happen. And so this, in a sense, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that feeds on itself, because as these financial organizations and as the world needs to have some allocation to these things, the more these entities grow, the more they have to allocate to them, which means that the more valuable to a certain extent they become. That's not guaranteed, but that's pretty much the case. So it becomes sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy that starts to feed on itself. But make no mistake about it. If you are an index of import, you're going to have these in it. The Dow, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, you're going to have them in it. If you are a company of any kind in the financial world of import, you're going to have a healthy allocation to these things. They are the most valuable things right now on planet Earth outside of gold. Now, BTC, Bitcoin, becomes the most valuable asset on earth at the price, at the US dollar price of $153,000 a coin, out all things being considered. Now I have to end it with that. I have to cap it off with all things being considered. Because as more Bitcoin is being mined, the $153,000 US dollar price actually comes down. So every 10 minutes, it takes less of a price for a Bitcoin to take out Apple or Microsoft or whoever it is in that $3 trillion number one spot right now, outside of gold. We'll get to gold in just a moment. And so there are 19.6 million some odd Bitcoin in circulation today. We all know that Bitcoin is capped at 21 million. There will never be more than 21 million, actually a tiny bit less than 21 million ever to exist in the history of the world. 19.6 of those Bitcoin are already owned. You can't not have a Bitcoin that's not owned by anyone. It's not like it can sit on a shelf that no one has claimed. It's always owned. So already 19.6 million Bitcoin out of a total of 21 are already owned by people, organizations, governments, entities, what have you. That's an insane thought to take in. Now, at 19.6, assuming that no additional Bitcoin is a part of that calculation, it will take about a $154,000 price to take out Apple's number one spot today, which I believe is just a bit north of $3 trillion. Now, all things considered, meaning that we operate with 19.6 million Bitcoin, and we assume that Apple's price does not rise or fall. We've got to start somewhere. And that's an interesting number that I want you to take down, $153,000. That is a stone's throw away. That is not far away for Bitcoin. That is a stone's throw away. Last cycle, Bitcoin 21x'd from its cycle low. If Bitcoin were to 10x from its cycle low this cycle, it would take out the $153,000 number. And 10x is a shoo-in, in my opinion. All right. Now, if the most valuable asset on planet Earth must be owned, must be allocated to, that it is not a choice whether you like the asset or not, you will get fired, you will be eliminated, you will cease to exist if you don't have some allocation to the most valuable asset on Earth. And Bitcoin at $153,000, all things considered, becomes the most valuable asset on Earth, which means that every organization, every money management firm, every index of import, every financial organization of import, every bank, every insurance company, every pension fund, every money management fund, everyone will have to have an allocation to it, whether they like it, hate it, or not. These are not choices. These are financial necessities. Otherwise, you get eaten alive by those who have it, and you cease to exist because people want to be allocated to the most valuable thing on earth, period. And if you're not, they go elsewhere. They pull all of their money and go elsewhere. So you have to. So in this sense, the world is still short Bitcoin. They're short the upside of Bitcoin, which means that as Bitcoin's value increases, the need for them to have it increases. It's not the other way around. It's not like all other assets that rise in value and become a bit too expensive. And people say, well, you know what? It's a bit too pricey. The PE ratio is way beyond the historical norm. So I'm going to hold off and wait for more value. That is not going to be the case with Bitcoin. The higher in value it goes, the more the need to allocate it, not the less need. The more the need, because as it inches closer and closer, as it becomes the fifth most valuable asset, it will more and more entities, items, people, things will have to adopt it, will have to allocate to it. As it becomes the third most valuable, more will have to allocate to it. As it becomes the second, as it becomes the first, when it becomes the first, every company, every financial organization on earth, every insurance company, I'm going to repeat this again, every ETF, every index of import, everyone will have to have some allocation to it. So, with less than half of 1% of the entire world holding Bitcoin today, the having to own it part hasn't even freaking started yet. It hasn't started yet. And Bitcoin is already the best performing asset on planet Earth. It's already got the best performance in a single month of any asset that has ever existed, major asset class. It already has the best performance in a quarter of any asset class that has ever existed. It already has the best performance record, the all-time record for the best 6 months, the best year, the best 3 years, the best 5 years, the best 10 years, the best 15 years, and it still hasn't yet started the era where every financial firm on planet Earth must have some allocation to it. We haven't even started, and it's already taken everybody out. It's already taken every other asset class out, and it hasn't even started. Can you imagine, as Bitcoin starts creeping toward this number one spot, the avalanche that must come in? Remember, this is not a choice. It doesn't matter whether you like it, whether you hate it, whether you're Jamie Dimon, whether you're Peter Schiff, you have to have an allocation or you die on that financial hill. Now, gold isn't a class all by itself in terms of value. It is the king of asset class value, and rightfully so. It's been in existence for 7,000 plus years. It has the longest record, the longest head start. It would be a piss poor world class asset if it weren't in first place after 7,000 plus years. But Bitcoin takes out gold at $720,000 a coin. And there are people who are very bright, intelligent, who have moved life in bigger ways than we can imagine. There are some of these people are calling for a Bitcoin price this cycle that approaches, if not takes out, gold's value at $720,000 a coin. Now, I'm not going to go there with the price prediction this cycle, but I do want you to have that number handy. $720,000 a coin becomes the most valuable asset in the entire universe. It takes out gold's 7,700 years as money on this earth. That's insane. And based on Bitcoin's historical cycles, that's not that far away either. I know that might sound crazy to someone new to Bitcoin, but it's not that crazy. It's not that far off. There are some experts that continue to remind us that the first gold mine was discovered in Switzerland. And that gold mine was actually being mined over 40,000 years ago. So based on those experts, gold is over 40,000 years old. Bitcoin is 15 years old. It's slipped back a little bit. It's already the 11th most valuable asset on the world. And its incredible meteoric march toward eating through all the other more valuable assets ahead of it is continuing. If taking out Apple at $153,000 a coin will guarantee that almost every single company, every single financial organization will have to have some allocation to it in the financial world, then who do you think will have to have an allocation to it once it takes out gold at $720,000 a coin? What entities on planet Earth will have to own it, even if they hate it? What organizations, after it becomes more valuable than 40,000-year-old gold or 7,700-year-old gold, you pick the number, what entities will have to have it, even if they hate it? Governments, nation states. You see, gold is the preferred asset of governments, largely because of its size, largely because of its long history, largely because it is made by God and not by man, because it is something that can be self-custodied. It is not a paper asset like stocks created and controlled by men. When you have gold, it is controlled by you, and no one created it. So it is God's money in their eyes, and it is their sovereignty, it is their safety. But when Bitcoin supersedes their God money, when Bitcoin becomes more valuable than their safety, when Bitcoin becomes more pristine, harder, scarcer than their special gold rock, they're going to have to allocate to Bitcoin. And guess what? They will print their own money at the speed of light to accumulate it faster and more than all of their other competition, which are nothing more than other nation states. I call them other plantation owners. All countries are nothing more than big giant plantations, and we're the help or the slaves that by no choice of our own are born on their plantations, and we are forced to give up our lives and work our entire lives for their pieces of paper, their coupon. Every plantation has their own coupon that you have to work for. And so once Bitcoin takes out $720,000 a coin, all things being equal, every sovereign country, every nation state in the world will have to allocate to it. And they'll have to allocate in a big way because the race will be on. Now, I believe that these races on the part of corporations, on the part of entities, on the part of financial organizations, pension funds, indices, ETFs, all of these things, that this race to allocate is not just going to start once number one position at $153,000 a coin is achieved. It's going to start before that. You see, Amazon was never achieved number one, but it's still one of the most owned assets on planet Earth. You see, Google never achieved number one, but it's still one of the most owned assets on planet Earth. You see, so it's not like the race is going to start once Bitcoin is number one. As it approaches number one more and more, it will pull a greater and greater percentage of the world into it. This is the ultimate Veblen. This is the ultimate Veblen thing of value. The higher it goes in price, the more desirable it becomes. There aren't many Veblen goods in the world, but Bitcoin is one of them. The higher it goes in fiat terms, the more it will be scrambled for, the more it will be fought for, the more intense the war and the competition becomes. So governments will have to FOMO in when their number one asset, which has always been the most valuable asset on earth, when their number one asset is no longer the most valuable thing on earth, that there's something else more valuable, something else more scarce, something else that is outside the hands of every human being on earth, something else that can't be controlled or manipulated, and it's Bitcoin. They will have to. They might hate it, but they'll have to. And so you've got these 2 points. Do you understand? These 2 trigger points that will create a global avalanche into them. When Bitcoin becomes the most valuable asset on earth outside of gold, and when Bitcoin becomes the most valuable asset on earth, including gold. Consider them, for those of you who are familiar with the equity market, my world for the last 43 years of my life, consider them buy stops. I believe that at these prices, you're going to see Bitcoin take an accelerated run like you've never seen before. A lot of people are constantly bombarding me with this nonsense of diminishing returns and, oh, Bitcoin's best years are behind it. Bullshit. That is the most ridiculous thing, and I posted about that today. How can Bitcoin's best years be behind it and only 0.5% of the world owns it? The entire world is still naked Bitcoin. The entire world is still short the upside. How can the best be behind 0.5% allocation? That doesn't even make sense to a freaking 8-year-old. It's dumb. Stupid. And I don't want you to be stupid. Don't buy into that BS. There's a difference between pauses and complete halts. And so Bitcoin's best years are ahead of it. Why? Because there's 0.5%, only 0.5% of the world is already in. You've got 99.5% of the world left to join in, and you've got these 2 most important trigger points, these 2 most important buy stop points that will cause, in my opinion, accelerations like we've never known. It crosses that barrier and becomes the most valuable asset on earth outside of gold. It crosses that barrier and becomes the most valuable asset on earth, including gold. And if you thought that Bitcoin could moon or skyrocket to the upside in US dollar terms, you ain't seen nothing yet. How many negatives is that? Ha! So, where does all of this take us, in my opinion? Everything I've mentioned to you about these trigger points and so forth and so on, where am I going with this? Where does this take us? Well, it takes us to the subject of my talk today. Nobody is going to sell Bitcoin in the future. I'm going to repeat that 2 more times. Nobody is going to sell Bitcoin in the future. One last time, just in case you didn't hear me the first 2 times. Nobody is going to sell Bitcoin in the future. No one in their right mind, anyway. Now, you might ask, but Oliver, why? Everything is sold, Oliver. There'll always be a buyer and seller, Oliver. Why, Oliver? Why? Why do all the doubters sound like that? Why? But Oliver, why? But get your butt out of the way. I am telling you, it's not going to be sold. Here's why. Because you'll never get it back in the future. I'm going to repeat that 2 more times. Bitcoin will not be sold in the future, not in any sufficient amounts. Anyway, Bitcoin will not be sold in the future because whoever sells it will never get it back. Mom, I'm sorry. There's that word again. Never. I've used this example in the past before. There are currently just slightly north of 8 billion people on planet Earth today. It is estimated that there are going to be more than 10 billion people living on planet Earth by the year 2050. That's not that far away. But we're slightly north of 8 billion today. Okay? Now, if there were only 21 million homes for 8 billion people, meaning that really only a very, very infinitesimally small number of people could ever have shelter from the sun, from the weather, from wild animals, from robbers, whatever, killers, psychopaths, whatever. If any of the people that actually had one of those homes were fortunate enough, if they ever sold a home to someone, would they ever get another home? No. Absolutely. They would be homeless forever. Their entire family line, generation after generation, would stay homeless because of their stupidity to give up the scarcest shelter on earth. That's freaking Bitcoin. What do you sell the scarcest asset on earth for? The 2000th scarcest asset? The 100th scarcest asset? Like, what do you sell number one for? Tell me. What do you sell the most valuable thing on earth for? The 17th most valuable thing? What do you sell it for? Do you sell it for the 7th most valuable thing? What do you sell the hardest money in the world for? An inferior money? Do you swap junk for the superior? Do you exchange? Do you think that you are going to be able to exchange an inferior thing for the most superior thing on the planet? You really think that? I think it's quite asinine to think that Bitcoin's going to be frequently sold in the future. I think it's freaking asinine. How many times have you heard the Mona Lisa being sold? Anytime? Anytime in your life? You've got that date or that time or that year on the tip of your tongue? What do you sell the Mona Lisa for? Do you sell it to fill up your gas tank? Do you sell the Mona Lisa for a vacation? For a house when it is valued to infinity? You don't sell superiority for inferiority. And I am telling you that government money, what you call cash, what some of you call the US dollar, what some of you call the Argentinian peso, listening to me today, what some of you call the Venezuelan bolivar, the Mexican peso, the Turkish lira, the euro, the renminbi, the Turkish Turkish lira, I said that one, the Australian dollar, the Japanese yen, the German mark. Oh, sorry, that's dead. That's gone. This cash, this government money is the inferior money. And as Bitcoin's value rises, no one's going to take the most valuable, the most superior thing on earth and exchange it for an inferior one. It's not going to happen. Do you realize that the higher Bitcoin's value goes, the worse off the fiat currencies that you are pricing it in becomes? As Bitcoin's very price rise is the fiat currency's demise. As Bitcoin becomes higher and higher in price, your dollars become worse and worse and worse. They're literally mirror opposites of the same coin. The dollar's purchasing power declines, Bitcoin's value rises. The very rise of Bitcoin shines a brighter and brighter light on the inferiority of the unit that you're pricing it in. So as Bitcoin becomes more valuable, less desire to flip it back into the inferior money. No one's going to take their $5 million mansion and swap it out for a $300,000 house. It ain't going to happen. A $5 million mansion that is guaranteed to mathematically go to 6 million and 7 million and 8 million and 9 million and 10 million. And they're not going to switch that for a $500,000 house that is mathematically designed to go from 500,000 to 400,000 to 300,000 to 200, just set in stone. Bitcoin is set in stone to rise in value every 4 years of its life. The US dollar and all fiat currencies are programmed to decline in value every single year of their lives. And so you think that people in the future are going to take the thing that's mathematically designed to go up in value forever and switch it for the thing that is mathematically designed to go down forever? It's not going to happen, Anon. As more and more people become aware of this, and I will tell you, Wall Street's a very quick study. You better hurry the F up. They're a quick study. They've got thousands of people studying this around the freaking clock. You better hurry up. Because they're not going to sell in the future. They're taking your Bitcoin right now as they flash Mount Gox FUD in front of you, as they timely release the information that it's FTX dumping the price. Interesting how that was not mentioned during the first 6 days of price decline. Oh, but now it's all over the world that it was FTX. You don't think that was a tool used to take your Bitcoin? You don't think that it was specifically timed to reveal the truth as to how can these ETFs wallets be going up in Bitcoin and the price going down, and everybody's perplexed, and that news, that fact is held back from you until now? You think that's by chance? You think that someone just freaking forgot? I used to years ago tell my traders, there is no such thing as real-time news. The minimum, this is all the way back in the 90s, I used to tell them, stop freaking relying on this news you think is real time. There used to be subscriptions that you could pay extra. There's the news that's 5-minute delay news. And then if you paid this amount per month, it's real time. And I used to say, traders, stop that nonsense. There is no such thing as real time news. Think of it this way. The minimum wage typist, this is back in the 90s, so we had typists, right? The minimum wage typist got the news before you did. Someone gave the minimum wage typist the news before she got it. Someone decided to give it to that guy, and another group approved it to be released. That's real time to you? There's no mistakes at this level, guys. This is a multi-trillion-dollar game. This is 3D chess. It's not freaking checkers. You don't leave things to chance at this level. You don't have everything mapped out and timed to the T. You don't have every I dotted and every T crossed at this level. It's not freaking checkers. At checkers, of course, at $100,000, of course, trillions of dollars, you make zero mistakes. Do you understand me? There's nothing by chance at this level. Nothing. The very day, the very hour that the FTX news was released, that was planned a long time ago. The very approval of the Bitcoin spot ETFs, that was planned a long time ago. These people at this level with this much at risk, playing at this high level, the $1 trillion level, I'm telling you, everything is mapped out. Everything is planned, right down to the number of hairs each of its clients has on their freaking head. Right down to the single last dollar that every single client has. All of this is known. There's no mistakes. There's no surprises at this level, people. There's surprises at your life's level, not at that level. Zero. You think wars in this world just suddenly pop up? They're mapped out and planned years in advance. They're coordinated. Don't be freaking naive. The game is too big to leave anything by chance. Nobody's going to do that. And God damn it, stop thinking that these people are going to allow you, bozos, to vote them in or out of office. That is the most ridiculous thing in the world to me. You think the game that they're playing at the level that they're playing, they're gonna let some straw hat wearing, wheat chewing, cigarette smoking, jean wearing, cowboy boot clicking individual choose whether they get into the game or not, whether they stay into the game or not? Really? You really think that? Come on. Same thing with these Bitcoin ETFs. All of this is mapped out. All of this is planned. The price, the price pressure is actually caused by you, but the dominoes that causes that price is set by them. The timing of every single thing is set by them. Now, I don't want to turn this into I don't want to turn this into a talk about price manipulation. US dollar price manipulation does happen. I think it's overblown. I think it's far more overblown than its reality, but it does have a reality. Everything connected to the US dollar is not 100% kosher. Everything. But it is, in my opinion, overblown. I think people think that the price of Bitcoin can just be moved at will by people. No, what can be moved at will are people, especially dumb people. And so it's not the manipulation of Bitcoin per se, it's the manipulation of bozos. It's the manipulation of over leveraged idiots. It's the manipulation of some of you who buy into this FUD, who buy into these scares, and you move the price. The over leveraged degenerates move the price. They can't really move the price. My Bitcoin is in cold storage. How can they move my Bitcoin? They can't, but they can move you. They can toy with your emotions and because they need you to move the price to them. So you're the one, you're the patsy, you're what they're playing, you're what they're manipulating. They can't manipulate Bitcoin, they're manipulating you. And let's get it straight. I'm not saying that there's not some price influence. I'm not saying that. I've been in this industry for 4 decades. I know there always is, but it's a lot lighter than most regular people think. People in mass move prices. They manipulate people. That's their number one thing that they attack. They attack you. So you don't sell number 1 for number 20. You don't sell the rarest, scarcest, most valuable asset on earth for something inferior. You don't sell the Mona Lisa for an ice cream cone or even for a vacation. You'll never get the Mona Lisa back ever again. No country, no company, no asset manager, and yes, no ETF in the future is going to sell their Bitcoin in exchange for what? Your dollars that you put 40 hours a week in for? Are you kidding me? You think they're going to give up the rarest, scarcest, most valuable asset to you in exchange for some dollars you worked your ass off for? You can't be that naive. They're not going to take that. I'm telling you, they're not going to take it in the future. They take it now. They're not going to take it in the future. cash will not work in the future to buy Bitcoin. And so in the future, this is where I see it. No country's going to sell it for something inferior. For what? No company, no asset manager is designed to go up forever. So sell it for what? Because there's nothing else designed to do that. Everything is designed to go down in value. Everything. And some people say, well, Oliver, the stock market, that's wrong. The stock market has been going down forever. And people get this wrong, guys. You want to come into my world, I will teach you the tricks in my world. This whole nonsense that stocks rise in value, that's bullshit that you bought. We sold that to you. We sold that to the public. We sold that to pension funds and things of that nature. That's not true. That's the trick. That's the mirage that Wall Street plays on the world. Oh, stocks go up on average 10% a year. Bullshit. Now, if you think about this, I'll give you one little secret to prove that this is false. It's a lie. The only thing that's not a lie is Bitcoin. So I'm going to raise the curtain a little bit just to give you one clue as to how they trick you regarding this. You see, how many stocks originally in the Dow Jones Industrial Average? The Dow Jones Industrial Average used to be the premier stock market index or gauge in the entire world. We were in the throes of the industrial era, and it contained the 30 wealthiest, the 30 most powerful industrial companies in the world. It was how you judged what the overall stock market was doing. These 30 stocks represented something like 80, 90% of the entire market capitalization of the entire stock market in the US. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, 30 stocks. How many of the original 30 stocks are in the Dow Jones Industrial Average today? I'll give you a guess. 0. 0 stocks that were in the Dow Jones Industrial Average 30 years ago. 0 of them are in the Dow Jones Industrial Average now. Do you know what an index does? You see, these gauges, what they do is that when a company is in the index and starts drifting, starts losing value and becomes a loser and starts trending towards 0, they kick it out. They kick it out of the index. And guess what they do? They replace it with a winner. What if you could do that with your trades? What if you could do that? I mean, think about that. What if you could take your losers, kick them out, and replace them with winners? Couldn't you create a chart that went straight up forever? If you had the ability to eliminate the losers and replace it with a winner? And so when you're looking at the S&P 500, you're looking at all of this finagling around. We kick out the losers. We add the strongest things. We keep the strongest things in there. We kick out the losers, keep the strongest things in there, replace. So we can create this continuous line that tells the people that it goes up. Do you know how many stocks you hear about compared to how many exist? You hear about the same freaking 15 companies over and over again every single day, week by week, month by month. Meaning, well, there's 15, 20,000 things that trade that are meaningless, that nobody pays attention to, that thousands of them that no one's heard of before. But you only hear about 15. And just by keeping the message focused on those 15, on that narrow part of it, gives you this false impression that the market is strong and big. Do you know how many companies are bankrupt that were publicly traded companies in the past that no longer exist today versus those that exist today? Do you know that the cemetery for publicly traded companies is exponentially larger than the number of companies alive today and that are publicly traded? And the cemetery grows every single month of the year, every single year, every single decade. The cemetery of dead, publicly traded companies that no longer exist today, they go to that cemetery, and there are more in the cemetery than are alive today. And so if there's more failures than there are successes today, and there are more failures every single month forever, how can you have a chart that goes up perpetually? You bought that. You've been duped. Stocks go down in value like everything else on planet Earth. Do you know what the average lifespan of a publicly traded company is? 17 years. You've heard it right. The average lifespan of a publicly traded company is 17 years. The average lifespan of a monopoly, I'm not talking about a regularly public traded company, I'm talking like an Amazon. You know what the average lifespan of a monopoly is? 67 years. They all go to the cemetery, even the best ones. You know what doesn't go down in value? You know what never goes to the cemetery? You know what actually goes the other way forever? Bitcoin. And when you have this epiphany, when you realize that Bitcoin is the opposite of the entire system that was created to go down in value, everything from stocks to bonds to cash to real estate, everything, the average lifespan of a home is 85, 90 years, which means that the closer it gets to its lifespan, the lower its value becomes. The average lifespan of a building is 100 years. At 90 years, it's going to start rapidly losing value. It's only got 10 years left in its life. Everything goes to the cemetery except Bitcoin. Do you understand this? This epiphany hit me 3.5 years ago, and it was like, OMG, my world got flipped upside down. That all of these things go to zero, and there's only one thing that human beings have access today that will never go to zero and will go in the opposite direction forever, because it is designed to be the opposite of what all of those things are. So as they go down, they push Bitcoin up. Bitcoin doesn't even have a freaking choice to go up. It has to go up because its very nature is to be the opposite. So if all of these things, if every company in existence today will go to zero, all of them will. If every building will come down, they all will. If every house will reach the end of its life, every option will expire, every stock will go to zero, every company will die, everything except Bitcoin. If all of those things trend towards zero, they have to push Bitcoin up because Bitcoin is the mirror opposite. It has no choice. When this hit me, you don't understand. I walked around in a freaking fog for days. I didn't want anybody to talk to me. It revolutionized my whole world. It disrupted all of my belief systems. I realized I dedicated my entire life. I've never done anything with my life but dedicated to the financial markets my entire adult life. From the age of 16 years old, I never did anything else. I never had a plan B. I don't know anything else. It ripped that apart and flipped it freaking upside down. I today am hoping that more of you have this epiphany. I'm hoping that deep, life-changing realization hits you one day. Because not only will it change your life, it's going to save your life. It's going to save your life from spending your life to get all of these things that go to zero, that go to the cemetery. Every currency goes to zero. Look it up. The average, type it in, Google it. What's the average lifespan of a fiat currency? You'll see 27 to 35 years. What's the average lifespan of a world reserve currency like the US dollar? 150 years to 300 years. We're right there. Everything goes to zero except Bitcoin. This will save your life because we have been taught to give up our lives, our energy, our time, our every minute of our lives. We're told to dedicate to chasing these things that go to zero. The trick is on us. And now we have an out. Now we have an escape. For the first time in a very long time, we have freedom. And I'm telling you, when you leave this go to zero world for something that will not only never go to zero, but continue to improve and increase in value forever, you never go back to slavery, people. You never sell freedom to regain your slavery again. Not when you've had this epiphany. Not when you truly understand what you have and what it is. The individuals on this earth will be the last to have that epiphany. And that is extraordinarily sad to me. That is why my mouth is so big now. That is why I'm trying to shout from the rooftops. That is why I fight you here on X.com. I even try to ridicule you into this realization. It is not because this gets my rocks off in any way. Sometimes it does. I like bashing on the haters. I'm sorry. But my point is that I feel like any decent human being, I feel this powerful urge to shout, look, you're in quicksand. Come over here. This is not quicksand. Oh, I don't trust that, Oliver. You've had 15 freaking years. How many more years do you need? 100? 200? How many more years? 25 more years? 20 more years? Have you decided how much more time you need before you acquiesce and say, I got it, Oliver? It's 15 freaking years. How much more? It's number one in every category. It's taken out every asset on planet Earth. It's got the best record, any metric you can think of. It's the most secure network in the world. You see in your faces the most powerful people and entities on earth gobbling it up by the thousands in front of your face. What do you need? What else do you need? And don't say you need me to see me dance naked, because that's not going to happen. You're just going to have to be a slave for the rest of your life. Not dancing naked for you. But I will continue to shout. I will continue to shout. You know this. If you think I'm playing with this, mark my words, people. When Bitcoin crosses $100,000, and it will, I'm out. I'm not sitting on the little Twitter and checking your little comments and debating you and fighting you and typing and this. That's not me. Do you understand this? I told my team I would dedicate this period of time. I would do this. I would create electronic footprints that hopefully no one ever gets rid of, that can be referenced years later to what I said, what my views were, what my vision is, right or wrong. That is why I'm doing this, to set the freaking record straight. And I believe with every fiber of my being, with the blood coursing through my veins today, people, I am here to tell you, I believe the day is coming where I tell you, I told you so. And I want you to know, some of you've heard me say this before, but repetition has a value. So listen again. I'm going to tell you that when that day comes, I won't shut up. I am going to annoy you. I am going to say, I told you so many times. Whenever you see me, whenever there's a hint of Oliver, you're going to turn around and run in the 180 degrees in the opposite direction. I am going to be a pest. Do you know why? Because I'm petty like that. That's right. I'm petty. I admit it. So get prepared. I'm going to be in your ear. I told you. I told you so. I told you. Uh-oh, here comes Oliver again. Oh, my God. I told you. I told you. I told you. I've not been wrong many times in my life. I've got thousands of people who can back that statement up. That is not egotistical. That is not braggadocious. That's not bragging in any way. That is freaking fact. And I don't think I'm going to start being wrong with Bitcoin. In fact, I know it. And I've got a 15-year, the most powerful record behind me, too. It's got to be incredibly sad. It's a sad position when you are forced to go against Bitcoin. When the facts are just so in your face, but you are compelled to be its enemy. You're compelled to fight against it, to come up with arguments against the best asset, the best thing, the best money the world has ever had. The record is clear. It must be a sad existence when you've got to sit there and fight that. I feel sorry for the people who feel inside of themselves that they're compelled to fight this monstrous number one thing. They must go to their bed miserable human beings. They can't be satisfied. They can't be happy because numbers are what they are. Facts are what they are. The 15-year record is set. You can't change that. Nothing is even in the same galaxy. It must be incredibly miserable, a miserable existence to have to fight that. I'm glad I'm not one of them, and I hope you're not one of them too. People, your time is running out. I am not saying that you will never be able to gain access to Bitcoin. Don't misconstrue my message. I am saying that no one is going to accept your dirty cash for it in the future. That's dumb. The US dollar's lost 99.98% of its value since 1913. No one's going to give you that declining, no one's going to accept that declining thing for this rising one. No one's going to do that in the future. They'll do it now. So this is what I'm saying. Your window of opportunity is now because people haven't caught on. Companies haven't yet caught on. Institutions are just starting to catch on. Countries have not joined in yet, but your window of opportunity is not as big as you think. Your time is not as long as you think. This is going to happen gradually, and then all of a sudden, it's going to start off gradually. The HODL rate is already at an all-time new high again. What does that telling you? That people, no matter what the price does, is refusing to accept your dirty government money for their precious thing. That's the only way the HODL rate can be at an all-time new high. At one point in the past, the HODL rate was in the 50s. Then it was in the 60s. Then it was in the 70s. Now it's in the 70s now. Next HODL rate is in the 80s. The next one's in the 90s, and it's going all the way to 100, where people are going to say, companies are going to say, institutions are going to say, governments are going to say, you're not getting precious for that junky piece of paper that you can print at will. I'm not doing it. Your window of opportunity where people are willing to give up their precious Bitcoin for dirty pieces of paper, that window is now. I am telling you, take advantage of it. Don't stop. Get this notion out of your head that when you get to a certain amount of Bitcoin, it's sufficient enough. There is never enough freedom. There is never enough independence. There is never enough self-sovereignty. You go until people stop accepting dollars for Bitcoin. I'm not accepting your dollars for my Bitcoin. I don't care what the freaking price is. Do you understand? I'm not the only one. The Oliver Velez's of the world are only growing from here. Your window of opportunity is smaller than you think. You are going to be outpriced out of this, and you will see the day where it's going to be very difficult to get your hands on Bitcoin. People in other parts of the world cannot get their hands on Bitcoin today. That is only going to increase. I am telling you, I am in fact begging you, do your best to open your eyes, have eyes to see and ears to hear this message before it's too late. Now go to work, Bitcoiners. Go to work, traders. Go to work, supporters. And haters too. Ciao for now. Boom. My name is Oliver Velez, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. Be safe out there, and until next time. Boom!